Let's break it down straight from the hill to your hometown. No spin, no hype, just facts we find. AI's on the case, no truth left behind. Laws are written, deals are made. Who's got your back, who's throwing shade? We cut through the noise, decode the text, keeping it real. Congress in context, Congress in context, shining the light, breaking it down so you know what's right. Policies, votes, who's working for you? We bring the facts, the power is you.
Welcome. You're joining us for Congress in Context. Today we're doing a special deep dive into the Congressional Record from Monday, April 21st, 2025.
Right. Think of it as your insider look. We're sifting through the official record to pull out what actually happened and, well, why it matters.
Exactly. No need to wade through all the procedural stuff yourself. We'll cover the new bills introduced, some important resolutions, even the day-to-day formalities, basically the key takeaways.
And it's interesting because even on a day that might look quiet on the surface, no big floor debates or votes, you really see the legislative machinery starting to turn. This record gives us a glimpse of those initial steps.
Okay, so let's dive into the House proceedings first. They kick things off at noon.
Yep, noon. And Speaker Johnson wasn't presiding initially. He appointed Mr. McDowell as Speaker pro tempore.
Which is pretty standard if the speaker needs to step away for a bit, right? Keeps the session moving.
Precisely. The Speaker pro tempore just fills in. Then Dr. Adries Bridges, the Capitol Police Chaplain, offered the opening prayer.
Anything notable in the prayer?
Well, the themes mentioned were clarity for leaders, strengthening democracy, and unity. You know, pretty relevant focus areas.
Definitely. Okay, after the prayer.
They approved the journal of the last session's proceedings.
Which, for folks listening, that's basically the official minutes, yeah. Making sure the record is accurate.
Exactly right. Then the Speaker pro tempore led the Pledge of Allegiance.
And then adjournment. It looks like they adjourned almost immediately, just 2 minutes after convening.
That's right, 12:02 p.m. They adjourned until Thursday, April 24th at 11 a.m.
So what does such a short session tell us?
It usually suggests the day is mostly for formalities and introducing new business, not for, long debates or votes. It could be ahead of committee work or a recess period.
And the record shows no committee meetings were scheduled for that Monday or the following Thursday either.
Right, so reinforces that idea, a lighter legislative day focused on getting new things into the system.
Okay, let's get into that new business then. 12 new public bills were introduced, H.R. 2971 through 2982. That's quite a range of topics.
It really is. Yeah. And looking at these introductions gives you a snapshot of the issues members are bringing forward. It's the very first step, proposing the idea and sending it to the right committee for review.
Let's maybe touch on a few. H.R. 2971 from Ms. Ansari. It looks like a grant program for youth biodiversity monitoring.
Yeah, sent to the Natural Resources Committee. The idea seems to be about getting young people involved in environmental science and observation.
Interesting. Then H.R. 2972 from Mr. Carey and Mr. Davis of Illinois, repealing the upper age limit for the Earned Income Tax Credit.
That's a potentially big one. It went to Ways and Means, the Tax Writing Committee.
Right. So removing that age cap could help older workers with lower incomes, I suppose.
That seems to be the goal. Ways and Means will look at the cost, who benefits, the economic effects, all that.
Okay, H.R. 2973. This one seems very specific. It's amending the Combat Injured Veterans Tax Fairness Act for Coast Guard members, but only under certain conditions.
Right, when they're not operating as part of the Navy. It's from Mr. Davis of North Carolina and Mr. Bacon. The specificity suggests they found a particular gap in the existing law.
And it's going to two committees, Transportation and Infrastructure and Ways and Means.
Yeah, that happens when a bill touches on different areas. Transportation and Infrastructure likely deals with the Coast Guard aspect itself, while Ways and Means handles the tax code changes.
Got it. How about H.R. 2974, exempting workforce training funds as income for SNAP recipients? That sounds like trying to avoid penalizing people for getting job training.
Exactly. It's from Mr. Espeja and others, including Mr. Bacon, so some bipartisan interest there. It went to the Agriculture Committee, which oversees SNAP.
Could make a difference for folks trying to upskill.
That's the hope. The committee will weigh if it helps participation in training without jeopardizing food assistance.
Then Mrs. Fletcher introduced H.R. 2975 grants to speed up zoning and permitting reviews for broadband projects.
Makes sense, given the push for better internet access. That's with energy and commerce. Streamlining deployment is a big focus.
Ms. McCollum had two bills, H.R. 2976 is, wow, amending the Animal Welfare Act to define cold-blooded species as animals.
Yeah, that's potentially a significant expansion of the Act's scope. That went to agriculture.
What kind of impact could that have?
Well, it could change regulations around research, exhibition, maybe transport for reptiles, amphibians, fish. A lot to consider there.
And her other bill, H.R. 2977, establishes a Mississippi River Restoration and Resilience Initiative.
Right, a big environmental focus. That one went to both transportation and infrastructure and natural resources, given the scope of river management.
Okay, H.R. 2978 from Mr. Nunn and others. This targets elder financial fraud, general financial fraud, and specifically calls out pig butchering scams.
Yeah, pig butchering, that sophisticated online investment scam. It shows how legislation is trying to keep pace with, modern crime.
And it also mentions clarifying the use of blockchain tracing tools for law enforcement.
Exactly. So it's giving law enforcement updated tools and clarity. That's why it's with both judiciary and financial services committees.
Makes sense. Then H.R. 2979 from Mr. Pappas and others, infrastructure support for small police and fire departments, referred to 3 committees.
Judiciary, transportation and infrastructure, and science, space, and technology. That suggests it covers a lot, maybe physical buildings, vehicles, tech upgrades, legal aspects.
Wow, okay. H.R. 2980 from Mrs. Ross and Mr. Carey focuses on cybersecurity and energy infrastructure by funding graduate students and researchers in those fields.
A workforce development angle, trying to build expertise in critical areas. That's what the Science, Space, and Technology Committee.
Then a tax one, H.R. 2981 from Mr. Taylor, allowing a deduction for qualified automobile interests straight to Ways and Means.
Yep, potential tax break related to car buying. They'll analyze the impact.
And finally, H.R. 2982 from Mrs. Velasquez and others, modifying tax sourcing rules for digital asset income for Puerto Rican residents.
So tackling the complexities of crypto and digital asset taxes, especially in U.S. territories. Another one for Ways and Means.
That's quite a legislative plate just from one day's introductions.
It really shows the breadth of issues Congress is grappling with.
So beyond the bills, there were also 5 resolutions introduced. Now, they don't become law, but they express the House's views, right?
Exactly. They can state an opinion, honor someone or something, recognize an event. Lots of purposes.
Like H. Con Res. 29 from Mr. Barr and Mr. Moore, it expresses support for the U.S. pulling out of the Paris Agreement.
Right. Sent to Foreign Affairs. It's a clear signal that the debate over climate policy and international agreements is very much ongoing.
Then a different tone. H. Res. 340 recognizes April as Community College Month. Looks like it had broad bipartisan support.
Yeah, that often happens with recognitions like this. Shows a general agreement on the value of community colleges. That went to oversight and government reform.
H. Res. 341 supports honoring Earth Day. That went to 2 committees, Energy and Commerce and Foreign Affairs.
Which suggests they see Earth Day as having both domestic policy implications, handled by Energy and Commerce, and international dimensions for Foreign Affairs.
Interesting split. Then H. Res. 342 from Mr. McGovern recognizes the history and harm caused by the drug DES, diethylstilbestrol.
Acknowledging a public health issue from the past. That went to Energy and Commerce, which handles health matters.
And H. Res. 343 supports the ideals of San Jacinto Day, important for Texas history. That also went to oversight and government reform.
Right. That committee often handles these kinds of commemorative or historical resolutions.
Now, something procedural but important. For every public bill introduced, there's a constitutional authority statement. What's that about?
It's a House rule, basically. The sponsor has to point to the specific part of the Constitution that gives Congress the power to pass that kind of law.
And most of them cited Article 1, Section 8.
Overwhelmingly. That's where you find the core powers: taxing, spending, regulating commerce, and so on. It's about showing the legal basis for the proposed action.
Okay. We also saw a long list of members being added as co-sponsors to bills and resolutions introduced earlier. Why is that significant?
Adding co-sponsors is a key way to show growing support. When a bill starts picking up more names, especially if they're from different parties or factions, it signals momentum.
So it increases its chances of getting attention, maybe getting a hearing or a vote down the line?
Potentially, yes. It demonstrates that the idea resonates beyond just the original sponsor. It's about building that coalition.
All right, let's shift over to the Senate side. Their day seems much quieter.
Very much so. They met briefly in what's called a pro forma session.
Pro forma, that sounds official, but what does it actually mean here?
It's basically a short, formal meeting just to satisfy the constitutional requirement that neither the House nor the Senate can adjourn for more than 3 days without the others okay.
So they're technically in session, but not doing any real legislative work?
Exactly. Senator Sullivan was appointed acting president pro tempore. They convened, and then they adjourned until Thursday, again for another pro forma session. Usually lasts just minutes.
Got it. So no new bills or debates on the Senate floor that day?
None recorded in this session, no.
Okay, now let's get back to the House side, specifically the extension of remarks. I always find this section interesting. It's where members put statements into the record, right?
Yes, it's a space for them to recognize people, anniversaries, local events, or sometimes to make longer statements on policy issues that didn't fit into floor debate. It's a real window into individual priorities.
Like Mr. Kennedy of New York had several. He recognized Geneva Givens on her 101st birthday
Amazing.
and remembered a constituent, Darrell Rouser. It really personalizes things.
It does. It shows that connection back to the district, celebrating milestones and honoring individuals.
Then you have Mr. Davis of Illinois using his extension to voice strong opposition to what he termed the Trump administration's attack on education, mentioning specific programs.
All right, so it's also a platform for members to state their policy positions or concerns very clearly on the record.
We also saw honors for local figures, like Mr. Harris recognizing a former police chief, Russell Roten.
And Mr. Wilson recognizing the 100th birthday of the United Way of the Midlands, highlighting community service.
Mr. Kennedy also recognized Scleroderma Awareness Month, and Mrs. Delmine honored Mary Selecki, a former Washington Secretary of Health. So public health awareness and service recognition.
Absolutely. Raising awareness for causes, honoring public servants, it's a common and important use of these remarks.
There were tributes to a philanthropist, Russell Salvatore, also from Mr. Kennedy, and retired Brigadier General Eden Muni, honored by Mr. Green of Tennessee.
Celebrating contributions across different fields, philanthropy, military service.
Mr. Kennedy also honored a historic church, Bethel AME in Buffalo, and its reverend. And Mr. McGovern honored a journalist, Mike Cole. Why honor a journalist specifically?
Well, recognizing institutions like the church highlights their community role. Honoring a journalist, especially noting things like fairness and accuracy, as Mr. McGovern did, can be a way to underscore the importance of, the press and democracy, particularly in challenging times for the media.
Makes sense. Then more recognitions for Mr. Kennedy. Candace Johnson for a Citizen Award, remembering firefighter Anthony Gansler, and celebrating Destiny Houston as the kindest kid in America.
A real range there, from leadership in science to firefighting service to, simple kindness.
Mr. Quigley celebrated a retiring Chicago Sun-Times writer, Thomas Frisbee. Mr. Kennedy recognized Danielle Roberts for YMCA leadership.
Honoring long careers in community leaders.
We saw a 108th birthday recognized by Mr. Simpson for Margaret Mortensen.
Incredible.
And then another strong political statement from Mr. Davis, this time opposing what he called the theft of Social Security by President Trump and Elon Musk.
Yeah, another example of using the extensions for pointed political commentary and expressing strong disagreement on major policy issues.
And finally, Mr. Kennedy celebrating a local Asian mall and market, and Mr. Mesmer honoring a car dealer recognized by Time magazine.
Highlighting local economic and cultural contributions and business leadership. So you see the incredible variety in these extensions of remarks.
Absolutely. So, wrapping up our deep dive into April 21st, 2025, even on a day with very brief floor sessions and no committee meetings, quite a bit happened under the surface.
Definitely. We saw the formal start for a dozen potential new laws covering everything from biodiversity to digital assets to veterans benefits. We saw a resolution signaling ongoing debates on climate change and celebrating community institutions.
And the extensions of remarks gave us that personal touch, a glimpse into constituent celebrations, local concerns, health awareness, and, yes, some sharp political points.
It really underscores that the legislative process isn't just about the big headline votes. It's this constant churn of introducing ideas, building support, and members representing their districts in various ways.
What's a key takeaway for you from looking at this specific day?
I think it's the reminder that progress, or even just the attempt at it, starts small. An idea becomes a bill, gets a number, gets referred to committee. That's the beginning. And tracking these beginnings can give you clues about where things might head. Also, the importance of those seemingly minor procedural steps that keep the whole thing running.
And for people listening, how can they kind of keep track or engage with this early stage?
Well, you don't have to read the entire Congressional Record every day,
Hmm.
but you can often find summaries of newly introduced legislation online. Congress.gov is the primary source, but many organizations track bills too. See what your own representative is sponsoring or co-sponsoring.
Right, it gives you a sense of their priorities.
Exactly. And remember, even these initial actions, introducing a bill, adding your name as a co-sponsor, are part of the public record. It's information that's out there.
So a final thought to leave folks with.
Maybe just consider how these different pieces fit together. The formal procedures, the new ideas and bills, the opinions and resolutions, the personal stories and the extensions. It's all part of the complex picture of how Congress operates day to day. Even on a quiet day, the groundwork for future policy is being laid. What impact might some of these seeds planted on April 21st eventually have? That's something to watch.
And remembering that your own engagement, even just staying informed about issues you care about, is part of that larger democratic process. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Congress in context.